Welcome. I provided the instruction for this challenge in the article before this lesson. In the article, I asked you to print this pyramid pattern using nested loops. I hope you've given that a try. You don't have to get it accurately. The point is to get you to think and practice what you've learned. If you've not tried it out at all, I advise that you give it a try. This is how you truly learn programming, by doing it. Alright, now let's solve the problem. Before we go ahead and writing code, let's consider what we want to solve first. We have a triangular pattern here, okay? So if you look at the pattern, we have how many rows? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that means we have 5 rows. In that case, let's create a variable and then we are going to call the variable rows. Okay, so we have 5 rows, all right? And then we are going to create a for loop to generate each row. To create a for loop to generate that kind of row, so we are going to say for, then we are going to have I. You can say row, you can say I, whatever is the case. Okay, so we are going to say for row, let's use row. In range, so we are going to have a range function. The range function is going to start from 1, all right? Okay, and then it's going to stop at the number of rows plus 1, because if you just say rows, that means we'll be passing 5 here. And if we pass 5, that means range is going to stop at 4. That means we'll be having 4 rows, but we need 5 rows. Okay, so we are going to say rows plus 1. Rows plus 1 is going to give us 6. That means our range is going to stop at 5. All right, so we have a colon here. Okay, now each row has 2 different things, that is space and star. So each row consists of space and star. We have spaces before the stars, and the spaces reduces down the line while the stars increases down the line. In the first row, we have how many spaces? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4 spaces in the first row. In the second row, we have how many spaces? We have 1, 2, 3. Okay, so here we have in the first row, we have 5 spaces. So that can be interpreted to mean, let's say 5 minus 1. 5 minus 1 will give us 4. Okay, the second row, we have 3 spaces. That can be interpreted as 5 minus 2. I hope you are getting the pattern. Here we have how many spaces? In the third row, we have 1, 2. So we have 2 spaces. Okay, so that can be interpreted as 5 minus 3. Okay, so that's going to give us 2 spaces. So you can see the pattern now. Now, to get this dynamically, we can create a for loop to be printing the spaces for us. So inside of the first for loop, we are going to have, okay, let's write a comment so that we'll be able to know what this does. Okay, so we are going to say loop, we're going to say loop to print spaces for each row. Okay, so we are going to have a for loop. Okay, so we can say, let's call this space. Actually, we don't need that variable. So we can say in range, we have range. Okay, so our range is going to start from 1. Okay, and now if you look at the pattern, we have 5 minus 1 spaces at the first row. We have 5 minus 2 spaces at the second row. We have 5 minus 3 spaces at the third row. So now, when we are looping in the first outer loop here, when we are doing this iteration, the first item here is going to be 1. The second item is going to be 2. The third item is going to be 3. So here we can say we have rows, which is the total number of rows. We have rows, which is 5 we have here, then minus, okay? So 1 here is standing for this row in the first iteration. In the second iteration, 2 here is standing for this row. This row is standing for 2. This row is standing for 1. And then this row is standing for 3. So we can say rows minus row, okay? But if we stop there, that means our range is going to stop at a number less than the number of spaces we want to generate. Okay, you know, in the first iteration, our row is 1, right? So if we say rows, which is 5 minus 1, that is going to give us 4. Okay, so if we pass 4 to this range function now, that means the range is going to stop at 3. Okay, in the second iteration, our row is 2. Okay, so if we say rows minus, so that will be 5 minus 2. And then that is going to give us 3. and we need 3 spaces in the second row. If we pass 3 here, that means range is going to stop at 2. So to solve that, we are going to add +1 here. Okay, so that the range function is not going to stop at 1 less than the number of spaces we have. Adding this one is going to make sure we get the accurate number of rows. Okay, so we have a colon here. Then inside of that for loop, we are going to print our spaces. So we have print. Okay, so we have the string we want to print, which is space. But if we leave it like this, that means we will be having 1 space per line. Okay, because the default end for print statement is a new line. So if we print this, we are going to have a new line after it. If we print another space, we are going to have another new line. But we want the spaces to be beside each other. So we are going to use the end parameter, the end input. Okay, so what do we want as our end? We want an empty string to be the end, so that the spaces will be by the side of each other. Okay, so we can run this now. If we run this, we are not going to see anything yet because all we have is spaces. All right, so to have something to see, after running this loop, we can print asterisk. Okay, so let's go with 1 asterisk for now. We run this, let's see what we have. Okay, so you can see now our pattern is forming gradually. In the first iteration, we have 4 spaces. Okay, in the second iteration, we have 3. The third one, we have 2 spaces. We have 1 space, and then we have 0 space. Okay, so we've gotten our spaces right. Now let's move to the stars. Okay, and if you look at the, let's get rid of this for now. Okay, so do we have here? Let's get rid of this. We are left with star now. Okay, and if you look at the pyramid, the number of stars increases as you go down the number of rows. The first row, we have 1 star. The second row, we have 3 stars. The third row, we have 5 stars. I think this one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stars. And this is going to be 9. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 stars. Okay. If you look at them, if you consider the pattern, the first row, we have a single star. So we can say that is 2 then multiplied by the number of row. So 2 times 1 is going to give us 2. If you subtract 1 from that, it's going to give us 1 star. Okay. And here we have 3 stars. So we can calculate that. We can say that is going to be 2 times 2 minus 1. 2 times 2 is going to give us 4. Minus 1 is going to give us 3 stars. Okay. Here we have 5 stars. So this one can be said to be 2 we have times 3 minus 1. 2 times 3 is going to be 6 minus 1 is going to be 5. So I guess you can see the pattern now. Okay, so this is 2 times 1. Okay, we can say 1 is the number of rows here. We can say 2 is the number of rows here. We can say 3 is the number of rows here. So in that case, rather than printing just 1 single star, so we are going to have another for loop. Okay, so we are going to have let's call this, should we call it star? Okay, we can say in range. Okay, so here we are going to start from 1. Okay, so we are going to say 2. Okay, it's going to be 2 multiplied by what? Multiplied by row, because this is 1, which is row 1. This is 2, which is row 2. This is 3, which is row 3. So we are going to say 2 multiplied by the row. Okay, now we are not going to add 1 because ordinarily we are subtracting 1 to get the actual number of stars we need. So if we add 1, that means we'll be having 1 more than the number of stars we need. So rather than having 1, the one we are supposed to add to it, this one is just going to cancel it out. So we can leave it out like this. Okay, now we have a colon. All right, so we need to print the asterisk. So we are going to print star. Now if we print star like this, in the first iteration, we are going to have star. The next one will be printed in the new line. The following one will be printed in a new line. So we don't want them to be printed in new lines. So we are going to say end. The end is going to be an empty string so that the stars will be beside each other. Okay, so let's run this and see what we have. We run this now. Okay, so we are close to where we are going to. We have 1 star, spaces, 3 star, spaces, 5 star, space, and then we have the rest of the stars. So the reason why we have them in a single row is because we are using an empty string as the end of our print statement here. So to have each of the stars on a new line, we are going to add an empty print statement after printing each line. Okay, so we are going to have an empty print statement. So this is going to make sure that the following group of stars will be printed in a new line, because the end of this print statement is going to be a new line syntax. Okay, so let's run this now and see what we have. We run that now, you can see that we've successfully generated. Let me drag this up. You see we've successfully generated our pyramid pattern. All right, so you see how you can work with nested loop to do whatever you want to do whenever you need to do multiple iterations. Okay, now let's get rid of this before we move on to the next task. The next task is going to be simple because we've already written out the logic. Okay, the next one asks us to generate numbers like this. We've gotten the logic to generate the pattern, so we're just going to copy this. Okay, so there is no need for rewriting that again. I'm going to copy that. So we paste it here. All right, the difference between this and this one is just numbers. So rather than printing stars, we are going to be printing numbers. So here we are not going to be printing star. Okay, so let's call this number. All right, so rather than printing star, we are going to say we want to print number. Okay, so if we run this now, let's run this and see what we have. Okay, so we have star for the first logic, and then we have numbers for the second logic. If you just want to see only the numbers, all you need to do is to just comment this out. So Python is going to think this is a comment and it's not going to consider that during the execution of the code. Okay, so we have our pyramid pattern printed. So that's that for the challenge. In the next lesson, we'll learn about two special statements, that is the break and continue statements. They give you even more control over your loops. So for that, I will see you in the next lesson.